Alright guys, we got part 2 of the best $300 smartphones. Let's get started with the OnePlus 7 Pro. Be sure to watch part 1. But the 7 Pro, you guys know, is still an excellent phone. If you're looking for a phone that's extremely focused on media, this is the best you're going to get in 2021. And again, 300 bucks, you can find it for around that price. All links will be down below. Beautiful design on here, aluminum frame, glass back, feels really nice in the hand. Big, beautiful, no notch, no punch hole display. It's a fluid AMOLED display at 90 Hz, HDR10 plus, 6.67 inches, 1440p, 516 for the PPI. Absolutely beautiful display as far as color wise. Brightness is pretty good on this phone, and again, you have that full screen curved display, which gives it a more full screen experience. Like, it feels like an actual, you're holding a screen in your hand, I guess. But yeah, it's just a beautiful display for anybody that's focused on watching videos or even gaming. It really does stand out. So you also have Android 11 on here, and you will get actually Android 12, so it's still good for updates. Oxygen OS is definitely a highlight. It's very clean and smooth skin. Really good balance between, you know, being simple and having customization options. You also have the Snapdragon 855 and the Adreno 640 on here, so it's still a very capable phone when it comes to you know, playing video games, running emulators, stuff like that. I've had no issues with performance on this phone still. There's no micro SD card support, unfortunately, but you do have 128 gigs of internal storage on the base model and 6 gigs of RAM. You also have on here no headphone jacks, so do note that. It's the only thing I miss about this phone. And you do have stereo speakers on here, which are pretty loud sounding, so I was always really happy with bass quality and mids and highs on here. NFC is on board. There's no official IP rating, but you can get this thing wet. It won't break immediately. You actually have on here a under display fingerprint sensor, which works really well. It's very fast, and in addition to that, you can use the pop-up selfie camera for face unlock, which is really nice. So the camera system on here is pretty good. It's a triple camera setup. I think it's really good for casual shooters. There's also a Gcam port on here as well. 48 megapixel standard, 8 megapixel telephoto, and a 16 megapixel ultra wide, shoots in 4K. And then the pop-up camera is 60 megapixels, that shoots in 1080p. And as you can see from the photos, pretty good color signs on here. You also get pretty good depth of field. You also get pretty good detail as well. The ultra wide is really nice on here, so I don't have an issue with the cameras on here, especially if you're in good lighting. You get an excellent shot on the 7 Pro for sure. And as far as battery life, this phone usually can last me all day, no problem. It's a 4000 milliamp battery, but it charges really fast at 30 watts, so it just charges right up when it does drain, so it's not a huge issue. So overall, the 7 Pro is still an excellent device. Next is the POCO X3 Pro. This is an excellent device as well. You know, not too of a flashy design on here. It's just a plastic phone, has kind of a, you know, unique kind of standout design on it as well. It's IP53 dust and splash protection as well. It actually has a pretty decent display at 6.67 inches. It's 1080p 395 for the PPI. And you also have a 120 Hz, it's an IPS display, HDR10, so it is an extremely silky smooth display with the punch hole in the middle. It gets fairly bright and has pretty good colors for an IPS panel, so I really didn't have any complaints with the display. No, it's not an AMOLED display, but still looks pretty good. You also have Android 11 on top of MIUI 12 on here with the Snapdragon 860 and the Adreno 640 on here. So this phone is very powerful when it comes to gaming for this price point. You can pretty much play any game, high settings that you throw at it, which is really nice. So if you're into gaming on a budget, this is definitely something to consider. Now you also have micro SD support, 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM on here, which is awesome. And you do have stereo speakers, which is really nice. They sound excellent, very loud and good quality speakers. I was really happy with those. You do have a headphone jack on board, which is really nice. You also have NFC and an infrared port as well, so you can use it as a remote controller, which is pretty cool. You also have a fingerprint scanner that's physical on the side, and that works extremely fast as well, so I was really happy with that. So this phone does have a quad camera setup, which is really nice. So it's a 48 megapixel standard, 8 megapixel ultra wide, 2 megapixel macro and depth sensor with 4K video, and a 20 megapixel selfie that shoots in 1080p. Basically, you can get some pretty good images for 300 bucks. Is this going to be the best camera phone on this list? No, but I think that it holds its own. I think it does pretty good with detail, color. I think the selfie camera was pretty good. Video was solid. So overall, I think, you know, you can see the photos yourself that you get some pretty good images here. No problem on this phone. So you do have on here a massive 5160 milliamp battery, just a, you know, monster of a battery. So if you're somebody that's constantly on your phone, gaming, social media, you're just going hard, this phone definitely it's gonna last you all day, no problem. So this is not a phone that you have to worry about, and you have some 33-watt fast charging, so you have really good charging speeds on this phone as well, which is really nice. Next is the Google Pixel 4a 5G. This is a very impressive phone. I still think this phone has one of the best cameras on the list, and it's overall just a solid device. So not too, again, flashy of a design. It's just a plastic body on here. It does have a matte finish, so it doesn't pick up a ton of fingerprints, which is nice. This phone actually has an OLED display at 6.2 inches. It's 1080p 413 for the PPI, so it's actually a pretty good quality display. You also get on here Android 11, a pure stock version of Android 11, so that's one of the highlights. You get updates extremely fast on here. When Android 12 comes out, you'll be the first one to get it, so that's one of the highlights with these Pixel phones. Very clean software. You do have the Snapdragon 765G and Adreno 620. Overall, it's a pretty capable chip for, you know, just going through Android, social media, casually gaming on here is fine. You do not have any micro SD support, 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM on here, and you also have a really nice quality stereo speakers, very good bass quality, good mids and highs, and you actually do retain the headphone jack on this phone. It also has NFC as well for your mobile payments, and the fingerprint scanner is on the back, and that works fairly fast. It's a physical one, of course. And you know, obviously the highlight is the cameras. You're just getting some excellent, pretty much near flagship quality cameras with this phone. 12.2 megapixel lens, and then a 16 megapixel ultra wide, 4K video, and then an 8 megapixel selfie that shoots in 1080p. Overall, image quality was just really good, really natural, really nice looking color science, very good dynamic range on here. Overall, I was just really happy with the selfie camera. I thought video was just okay, but the pictures are actually just very good on here. So I do really like the Pixel's camera, especially at this $300 price range. It's just really nice. So battery life also is very good on here. Now I don't never use 5G, so if you're just on standard 4G, this phone definitely will last all day. It's a 3,885 milliamp battery, 18-watt fast charging, which I think is a little bit slow by today's standard, but overall battery life is going to be fine. So the 4A is a great pickup if you want really a great camera. Next is the LG V50. This is also a really great device and has a lot going for it, a lot of bells and whistles on this guy as well. So this phone, you do have a premium design, aluminum frame, glass back, IP68 dust and water resistant on here. You also have a beautiful POLED display at HDR10 at 6.4 inches. It's 1440p 538 for the PPI, so extremely sharp display on here. As far as text and colors, everything just pops and looks really good. Brightness is really well. You also have Android 10 on here with the Snapdragon 855 and Adreno 640 on here. So again, you have really good performance as far as gaming, bouncing in and out of applications. This was on LG's update list, so it is going to get updates in the future, which is really nice. And you also have micro SD support, 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM on here. You also have pretty good sounding stereo speakers on here as well. Good bass quality, good mids and highs. Overall, no problem. This phone does have a 3.5mm headphone jack with a quad DAC, so you do get very high quality audio, which I really love. So that was really awesome on here. You also have NFC for your mobile payments, physical fingerprint scanner on here as well, which works very fast. And to me, you have some pretty good cameras on the V50. So you have a 12 megapixel standard, a 12 megapixel telephoto with 2x optical zoom, and a 16 megapixel ultra wide 4K video. And then you have a dual camera setup up front, an 8 megapixel standard, and then a 5 megapixel wide if you're somebody that likes to take group selfies and stuff like that. You also have 1080p video. Overall, I was really happy with the quality of the V50's cameras. I think you get really nice natural colors on here, very good detail. The portrait mode was really good. You get a good depth of field, good blur. Ultra wide has good detail. So overall, I think the cameras are still very good on here. Video is actually really solid on this phone as well too. So I was really happy with the image quality here. So you do get a 4,000 milliamp battery, 18-watt fast charging with also wireless charging as well, which is really nice. For me, this phone definitely lasts all day, around 7-8 hours of screen on time. Again, depends on how hard of a user you are, but the V50 is still an excellent buy. Next is the iPhone 10, and this phone is still an excellent phone. Every time I use this phone, I'm just really impressed with how well it's aged, especially for the price that it's going for now. You have a premium design on here, stainless steel and a glass back, IP67 dust and water resistant on here as well. You have a Super Retina OLED display, 5.8 inches. It is 1080p for 58 for the PPI. Overall, it's a very nice panel, even though you have sort of this big notch up top. Again, it's a really good panel, so I really don't have any complaints with it. And one of the best things about this phone is that it's still running the latest version of iOS 14. And honestly, this phone really will get iOS 15 if not 16. It's still very fast with the Apple A11 chip. It does a really good job playing video games and stuff like that, bouncing in and out of applications, multitasking. It just is a very still snappy phone for its age, which I was really happy with. No SD card support on this phone, 64 gigs of internal storage and 3 gigs of RAM on here. You also have on here stereo speakers, which sound really good, very good bass quality, good mids and highs. There's no headphone jack, of course, on iPhones. You also get NFC as well with your Apple Pay. Face ID still works really well, very fast on here, and the cameras are still pretty good on the iPhone 10. You have a 12 megapixel standard and a 12 megapixel telephoto with 4K video and a 7 megapixel selfie with 1080p video as well. So basically, you get some pretty good image quality. I wish it had an ultra wide, but you get a good depth of field on this phone, pretty good colors on here. Overall, you can still get very good image quality, and you also get really good video too. It's great for FaceTime and stuff like that. So overall, I had no complaints with image quality. Battery life is just okay on this phone. It's a 2,716 milliamp battery, 15-watt fast charging, which honestly is pretty slow these days. And you also have wireless charging as well. Battery life is one of those phones that depends on how you use it. If you're more of a harder user, you're gonna have to charge it by the end of the day, but overall it's still a very good phone. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one.